Well, you can be preoccupied in driving with driving economically. You've got a hybrid car, you're trying to maximize the time that you use the battery rather than the engine and so forth. But you can find you're attending to the wrong thing. After all, safety is actually paramount. If you have an injury to someone, including that being yourself, of course, this can be major, can't it? So really, one should be attending to, you need to prioritize. That's pretty obvious in a case like motoring, isn't it? But what are we really saying here? We're saying that if I get the values right, then instead of preoccupying myself with economy, say in driving, assuming that's one of your goals, I'd be preoccupying myself first of all with safety, and economy of driving is secondary. Do you see? To be preoccupied with the priority is by definition best. That's what we mean by priority, isn't it? And in this case, the priority is not so much the detail, but the values that cause you to choose certain things and ignore others. So, if I have my values right, and in the case of driving, I'm prioritizing safety, then things are in the right perspective. I deal with that, and then, secondary importance is economy. Because, of course, economy I can always simply cut out. If I don't make the most optimal economic decision, I can simply cut out certain things that I don't really need so much at the margin, and it's only a marginal difference to my life that I've been less economic than I could have been. But to make a mistake in safety can be crucial to the welfare of my life and family and other people's, of course, if they get injured as well. So, if we now come back to the bigger picture of living, in the sense I want to say we would be asking God to get our priorities right for us first, and in particular, therefore, our values, which are determining our priority, instead of me being narrowly obsessed with, economy of fuel. I'm prioritizing, and I'm very focused majorly on safety, and economy of fuel is next. And that's because my values are right. So do you see in living that your values are what you really need to get to, more than your behavior? If you don't get the values right, you could be trying desperately to get your behavior right in quite the wrong field, a non-priority, ignoring that which you really need to be attending to. So, we learn from our practical life, we learn priorities. And, of course, if you think about it, our priority is according to what our values are. We want to get our values right. That's our priority in living. Not actually the details of life, of actions. Certainly we want the right actions, that's true, but it's not our priority. Our priority in living is values. And of course, the spiritual enlightenment is that our values are according to something eternal, the bigger picture, that which we understand to be perfect, even though we don't understand what perfect is. We're trying to move towards some wonderful goal. And that wonderful goal is our God. I mean, your God might be, if you're not too enlightened, to have a $1 million income or something. I mean, that's not going to do it. You could have $1 million income for a little while and end up in a hospital for the rest of your life. That's not going to do it. So we want to get our values right. We want to prioritize what is truly priority, taking into account our welfare, not only now, but in the long run, and what the notion of our is. What is myself? Is it just narrowly me, or me and my partner, or me and my family, or me and the people I know, including the family and partner, of course, How wide is myself? I need to get that priority in mind too, don't I? And I don't mean by that you necessarily therefore treat all people equally as important. There will be priorities. You're designed to sustain your own life. You have a knee-jerk reaction and a panic when your life is threatened, much more so than when someone you scarcely know about is having trouble. And that's for a reason. You're meant to stay in the classroom, not flip out too early. So I'm not talking about a narrow selflessness in the everyday sense. I'm talking about an optimal self. Given you are in this world, you are a student, you are a child, you don't have all the answers, you're living and making decisions in uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, you've been blessed with a consciousness of a relatively narrow view of self. That's possibly too narrow, and you're trying to determine what you think is best, is optimal. And that may change as you experience living accordingly. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? That which we don't understand, well, we choose what we think is the most likely to be for the best from the values we have. And the experience of such changes our values accordingly. And we trust that we home in on, is it hone in or home in? I think it's both. On, if you like, some perfection, a greater happiness, a greater godliness, fullness of life, life eternal, not only for ourselves but our loved ones, and probably our circle of loved ones is increasing daily. I think so. What do you think? Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Did you notice here that at 4 minutes through this recording, I've actually made a mistake in reasoning, didn't I, in logic? We don't want to perfect our value system. Or at least that's not our priority, because we actually understand that we don't want to perfect any detail of life, because to perfect something usually means putting so much resources into it, if not infinite, that you have nothing available for the other things that are contributing to welfare and happiness and your true goals, whatever they are. So it's not that I'm trying to perfect my values, but to optimally allocate my attention and resources in life, but bearing in mind values are a priority. Not that I will perfect my spectrum of values, if you like, appropriately, but that it is the priority in general, in that it has, well, we allocate our effort until our effort is better spent elsewhere, at the margin. Do you see? This is economic theory. How do you spend your income, the money you have? Well, you allocate it across various things that you could address it to, what you could buy. And then, if you like, with each additional dollar that you have, you're saying, now where is its best use? It might be a bit more petrol in the car. It might be a bit more food in the larder. And you'll optimize between the two. It's not that you will fill your car with petrol and not have enough money for food. That wouldn't be optimal, would it? And it wouldn't be optimal for many people if they just filled their larder with food way beyond what they really need at present and didn't buy petrol to get to work. Which of course would have been therefore self-defeating, and the income starts to vanish. So, no, we're not actually perfecting, but we are prioritizing, but in the way that I'm implying here. We are optimizing. And to optimize means very often changing from an allocation of our attention and resources in life such that we get our priorities right. We're not, spending it all on petrol instead of some on food and some on petrol, which would be much more use to us, much more value, much better welfare. We're not spending all our time meditating on what our values should be and not going to work or looking after the kids or looking after ourselves, come to that. Do you see? We're not perfecting any one particular contributor to our welfare. We're allocating across it. Hang on, I've got an interruption here. Right, well, now there's a good example of it, isn't it? I could say, oh no, I don't take interruptions. I turn my phone off and so on. Doesn't matter how important an interruption is. I don't want it, And now that wouldn't be allocating my resources optimally at all, would it? Because it might be an emergency. It wasn't an emergency, but it was a very favourable call from my ex, and she's trying to work out what's optimal as regards whether she has a dog or not. And I know Aria would like some, so I'm happy, very happy to encourage that if she is both able and willing to, for the family to have a dog there. On the other hand, there was another point, which was the school she's going to, and I'm not at all keen on the school that both she and Aria have got in mind, my daughter, So I'm able to say, well, I'm just basically strongly not advising it, but if that's what she wants to do, and even if it turned to custard, I think she could go back to the one she's in at the minute if she needed. And it was a good phone call. It was a benefit, a blessing. It would have been, possibly a great loss if I hadn't answered the phone when I did. We're much more, I don't know, is the word eclectic? I don't think it is, I won't risk saying that. We're much more flexible. We think now, what's best to do here? We're pragmatic in that sense, aren't we? I mean, in a good sense. I think pragmatism's taken on a rather cold, analytical, unloving connotation, but in fact, we're reasoning it out. We're saying, well, in this situation, what's for the best? And to accept interruptions can be majorly for the best. We don't want endless interruptions, or we achieve nothing, of course. Again, we're trying to optimize, aren't we?
And our life is that. Worse, we're trying to optimize in uncertainty. By which that was my specialism in my research at university. Decision making in uncertainty. And we won't go into that. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. But I will go into that, perhaps in the next recording. Thank you, Dad.